Hey there, Bearded Bristol is back, and I'm just a guy who likes to talk and paint. And this is the third take. Yeah, we are rocking and rolling. Won't go through all of my troubles with you because, frankly, you just don't care. But nevertheless, this is episode number 10. That's right, there are 9 more of these monstrosities prior to this one, but I keep on going. Working on the showpiece here that is due when? 2 weeks. It is due in 2 weeks. That's right. I looked at the calendar the other day, and then I looked at the painting, and I looked back at the calendar with bigger eyes, and looked back at the painting, and let out an expletive. Long way to go, short time to get there. But we're not going to rush through this. But I am doing a lot more painting on the evenings and weekends when I am not recording video. So I've made significant progress. However, you're not going to be able to see it on the close-up. We're going to save some of this for the big reveal here in 2 weeks, I guess. I'm not hyperventilating yet, but I might be soon enough. So stay tuned. Gonna focus on this area here. It's kind of underdeveloped. Worked on that a little bit in the last video, but just mostly put out some tones, kind of a blueprint for where I'm going to go next. So as I put a little paint on my brush and collect my thoughts for just a second, we're going to get started and see where we go. Once again, playing with my zero brush. That is just kind of my mode at this stage in the game. And gonna try to put it all together here and have some fun while we're doing it. But kind of interesting, was thinking earlier today about collections and collecting, and you know, the fun that we probably all have had collecting things over time. I used to be an absolutely rabid baseball card collector. I had upwards of 50,000 cards at one point in time, which some of you, your jaws are going to drop to the floor. Others of you are going to laugh and say, that's it? Yes, that is it. 50,000 was that was kind of where my collection peaked before I realized I was heading towards my formative college years and had absolutely no, use is not the right word, because they were never particularly useful, were they? But I was turning a page in my life, and that page was going to take me away from my hobby. And it was okay. I did not, it didn't matter at that stage in my life. It was time for me to put that collection to bed and start working on something new, which was, you know, my education. But, you know, I have always been prone, I guess, to collecting things. And I, you know, not entirely sure why, but I do have a thought on that. But I, you know, growing up, I think my first collection was probably Hot Wheels cars. And every week my mother and I, when I was, you know, before I was 4 years old, before I attended kindergarten, well, before I attended first grade, my mom, we had to drive a half hour to our big city for groceries and shopping and whatnot. And my mother would buy me a Hot Wheels car or Matchbox once a week. So, you know, that's 52 cars a year. That's not too shabby a collection. But it turns out that one of my buddies had, you know, a couple hundred, because his mom would buy him 2 cars to my 1. And, you know, it was not a race, but at the same time, his cars always seemed cooler than my cars. So I had to get more cars to try to hold up and to keep up a race, if you will, for the biggest car collection. And, you know, phased out of that, I think that's probably when baseball cards entered into the picture. And, you know, once again, same principle applies. Oh my gosh. I have to have all the cards, all of the cards. And, you know, doing it 50 cents at a time and getting a pack of 16 or 17, it was very tedious, but it was also seemingly a lot of fun, even though it was equally frustrating. But that's how you amass 100,000 cards, 95% of which are just completely worthless, not even worth the cardboard they were printed on in that day and age. And, but I collected baseball cards. Moving on into, say, junior high-ish, I began collecting video games. Because video games, I mean, that was a thing for us growing up. You know, you had to play video games, and one of my buddies had a fairly hard and fast rule that he was not going to buy another game until he beat the one he was, you know, had purchased last, or in some cases the one that he had borrowed from me, because he wanted to get every ounce of possible enjoyment out of that video game before he moved on to something else, which I always thought was an interesting philosophy. And, you know, in hindsight, my bank account and my mother, and probably me ultimately, would have been much happier if I had followed suit with a similar game plan. But I digress. I did not do such a thing. I could not. It was not in me. So as I got bored with a game, which sometimes only took a couple of days, I began looking forward to the next game and the next purchase. You know, I didn't always have money for it, so I stole it. No, that's not true at all. I did not. I never stole a thing in my life, but, you know, it gave me a will to work and to find ways to earn money for that next purchase, but it took away from my ability to enjoy what I had already had and to really, you know, the money that I spent on those baseball cards or that video game, because I was already fixating on the next purchase. And you know, there's a lot of lessons to be learned in that, and I know I always come back to the lesson thing, and you're like, God, would you just shut up? I came here to watch you paint. But seriously, in all of that, you know, I was sacrificing the enjoyment of the hobby because I was already thinking about the next purchase, particularly with video games. You know, I had a running wish list of games that I wanted that, you know, hopefully a friend would buy, or if a friend didn't, then I had to go get it. And, you know, I would buy the game that was number 2 or 3 on my list because it was in front of me, all the while wishing I had game number 1. And, you know, it's not dissimilar to that period of collecting baseball cards because, you know, you wanted that Ken Griffey Jr. rookie. Having a nice Barry Bonds card just wasn't the same because, you know, first of all, the perceived value, but the rarity of the Ken Griffey Jr. rookie cards, you know, you had to have one of those, and so you kept on buying, and if you didn't get it, you had to buy more. And, you know, it became an obsession for me, both video games and, you know, to a lesser degree, the Hot Wheels cars, but certainly, you know, video games and baseball cards grew to be obsessions for me. And it was all-consuming at times. You know, it was so... I loved the price guide. I even collected the magazines, right? For both video games and baseball cards. And the funny part of that is it was under the guise of me being a reader, because I was. I loved reading. And I still do, I just don't read enough. But I loved reading the stories in the baseball card magazines and in the video game magazines, and it made me, a hobbyist kind of expert in those specific arenas, which was, cool. But it just gave me another reason or another outlet of fixation on what should have just been a very fun and laid-back hobby. And, you don't realize it as it's happened. It's hard to really dive in and understand that you're obsessing on something until you are out of that obsession and can kind of look back on your wasted times or your wasted energies and say, wow, all of the things that I could have been doing with that money or with those resources, and instead I bought cardboard. And, of course, the comic irony in that is, as baseball cards have made a bit of a comeback, at least short term here, there's kind of the comedy in that, because like so many other kids my age, those collections went elsewhere. I did not throw mine in the garbage, but I found a young kid, several years younger than me, who was just getting into baseball cards. And I said, for $5, you can have this whole box of 800 cards. And I didn't screw the kid. I coulda, but I didn't. I made sure that there were some cards of value in there because I wanted him to enjoy the hobby the way that I should have. And so I made sure that there were some cards of value in there so that he could experience that kind of excitement and joy of finding the card of your favorite player or from your favorite team or whatever that is. And so I was able to abandon a large portion of my collection to that young man who did not collect cards for very long, and that's okay. Probably way better for him. But, baseball cards and video games spend an awful lot of money, time, energy fixating on those things. And, I bought books. I bought lots and lots of books and had a collection of books because I wanted a collection of books. I thought that would make me smarter, or appear smarter. And I think it did, and I did read those books. I didn't let that go to waste. But, again, it was kind of I just had to have more books. And it was not until much later in life, and I could not identify the whens and wherefores on that I realized that this compulsion, this obsession, that I had with things, with collections in general, was because I was missing something somewhere else. I was missing, in many cases, meaningful relationships. And, I don't take that lightly. I had a good relationship with my parents. My parents were very loving people. But they were also kind of tired of being parents. I have 3 older siblings, and by the time I came along, I was a little bit later in life. My parents, in large degree, had kind of moved on from the idea of parenting. By no means were they perfect at it, but my mom knew what she was doing. So that freed up their time to go to the local pub and have a few drinks. And they were not alcoholics by my estimation or anyone else's to my knowledge. But Dad got off work after a hard day and wanted to have a couple of beers. And frankly, who can blame him? I am the same way as I sit here with my paint waiting to get after my scotch. But, I think when you dial right down to it, I did not have a deeply rooted or deeply meaningful relationship with my parents. My siblings and I got along very well. However, they were mostly out of the house when I was still in elementary school. So their accessibility and their availability was not there. So I think, I turned my attention to something else to try to make me happy. And, whether baseball cards, books, or video games, they all fit the bill. They provide a sense of accomplishment or a sense of even belonging, if you can believe that, because you're at home with that collection. And but it also gives you, that's where that desire then to grow. Wow, dropped my brush. That's where that desire then to grow that collection comes from, in large part, because you're not getting anything truly meaningful out of that relationship with the cardboard, which is stunning, I know, or with that relationship with the video games. Yeah, video games are fun, but still kind of left you hollow when you were done. And instead of those things just being a distraction and something to have some fun with, like I said, they became a fixation. It became something that I dwelled upon way more than I should have, and I probably lost out on a great many meaningful interactions with other people because I was too busy collecting things. And I should have been collecting experiences and collecting relationships. And so, I think that's where this all goes. I still collect things. I have a number of pipes because I enjoy pipe smoking. But it is not for me an obsession. Not all consuming. It's something that I do in my free time. It's something that I enjoy, but it's not something that defines me. And I think, therein lies the difference, is that hobbies are great. And heaven knows, throughout COVID, where we were all kind of locked down in one form or another, if you didn't read books or have, a fitness hobby or a crafting hobby, you could darn near go mad. So, that probably, if you've seen the news or heard the statistics, COVID led to a lot more substance abuse issues within the home because people could not engage in those meaningful relationships or in those meaningful experiences because we were all, hiding from the big sea monster. And, it took away our ability, in many cases, to go out and enjoy life and to make those experiences, those bonds, and those relationships really happen. And I don't want this to be about COVID by any stretch, but I think right now is a good time to explore, what did you collect? What do you collect? And what did that COVID period actually do to you from an internal, external standpoint? Because, one of the worst things for many of us is being left alone because it gives us, too much time to think about our faults and our failings. And, if I woulda this, or, if I was just working, if lots of things, lots of what ifs that come out of that isolation. Now, for me, I am not the general rule. With most things, I'm kind of an abstract, as you've probably come to figure out. But the lockdowns and such, in many ways, were actually pretty good for me. because I got back into fitness to a degree. I started reading again, and I actually relished in the alone time. But that doesn't mean it's easy or that's going to be beneficial for everyone. But back to, the collections, I have found meaning in my life in a variety of different ways. I have good relationships with other people. I have good friends. I have good coworkers. I feel good about the work that I do on a daily basis. So I have found meaning in other places apart from the things. And so that, is where I no longer obsess over things. I can still collect things without obsessing, without letting it define who I am or what I do. I would rather art define who I am. I would rather these little talks define who I am. And with that, the timer is telling me it's timer up. That's it. I have made some progress here. Hopefully you've enjoyed watching it kind of develop and grow out of those rough shapes into some actual visible things that make sense. But, deep breath. Collecting things. Collect the good things. Collect relationships. Collect memories. Collect your thoughts. Most of them are good if you allow them to be. But do not collect those negative things. Substance abuse, alcohol, a little bit here and there is what we do. But now, do not collect the negative things. Do not obsess on the negative things, or even sometimes the positive things. Obsessions in and of themselves tend to take you down the wrong path. Be a collector, be a hobbyist, but do not obsess on those collections or those hobbies, or you're going to find yourself more alone than when you started. And ain't none of us really want to be alone, no matter how much I might say I'm not fond of people, and many of them suck. I need meaningful relationships in my life, and so do you. So spend your time collecting friends. Spend your time collecting meaningful relationships. And spend your time collecting the positive things in life that make you better. And that is the end of the story. Go out there and create something. Or collect something. Do the thing. I'm going to have a pipe. Keep painting here. But thanks for joining me for another little chat. And we'll talk to you again soon.